Hey, this is Dave with Taboo Customs. Today, this video, we're working on our 2003 Grand Cherokee again, and this is a Grand we purchased for under a grand series. And in this video, we're going to be repairing another one of those common areas of Grand Cherokee failures in the electronic system, and that is the wiring between the door and the body. So let's take a look at some of the issues that we've got specifically with this one. Now the area we're referring to in this video is this right here. And if you're buying a Grand Cherokee, you know, it's one of those things you can look for and see. Now this one on this side was covered up. Actually, we ended up messing around with some wiring and some other things. We ended up popping this loose, and we noticed right down here, it might be hard to see, but there's a large connector that is not a stock connector. So that means that wire broke. What happens here is these wires end up moving so much, rubbing on each other over the years, they end up just failing. Now this side, again, like I said, that's normally how that would look with that boot over it. But on the other side, something that if you're looking at a Grand Cherokee can easily be seen, and see if someone's been in there messing around and trying to fix those wires. Now, on the driver's side, it's a little bit easier to see that we may have a problem. You can see that that boot has, well, been kind of chopped up, not in great shape back there, pretty much mostly gone, and someone has taped up all those wires, probably because they had to fix a few of them. Chances are the fixes aren't great, chances are more of them are broke. It is hard telling, but that's something that if you're buying a Grand Cherokee, you can easily look down in there and see if someone's got that boot chopped up like that. Now the issue we actually have on this Jeep is we have a parasitic drain on the battery. So when the key is off, the battery is still draining. If I remember correctly, something around 300 milliamps, which is way too much. And in our troubleshooting that, we have traced it back to the driver's door. We checked several door modules because we have several of these power window modules, and none of them, you know, fixed the battery drain issue. So before we go any further with our troubleshooting, we know that that wiring is an issue. There may be some, you know, wires in there that are bad that could be contributing to our issue. So we're going to go ahead, repair this today, hopefully get it done and fixed correctly. Let's take a look at the kit we purchased to repair this issue. Unfortunately, to repair this issue, pretty much got to go in there and replace the, you know, a pretty good amount of the wiring there from the door into the body. So we've purchased this kit off of Amazon. We'll put a link in the description of this video for this kit if you are looking for this kit. Now we will say one thing about this kit. This kit comes with a whole bunch of these butt and heat shrink connectors. We actually don't like those, don't prefer those. We prefer the solder style connectors. So we'll also put a link to these, but obviously if you wanted to, you really could use these. Going to be a fairly tedious job because you obviously have to match up every single wire and get them all connected correctly. So we'll try to show you how we go through that as we get into this Jeep. All right, so on the driver's side compared to the passenger side, fairly similar. You do have to pull this off here. This is the release for your hood. 3 10mm socketed, you know, 10mm socket bolts, and pull that off. Anyway, we got the tape off, and you can see it's ugly. We've got at least, I think, 3, maybe 4 wires here that are spliced. Of course, you see they splice some of these larger wires with a really small wire. This one up here was not, I think that was just like taped into the harness. Yeah, so really ugly here. So yeah, glad we kind of pulled this apart because this is pretty sketchy. All right, figured that we'd start on the passenger side showing you that because that's going to be easier to get the camera and everything, all the lights and stuff into. Driver's side pretty well similar except for just a couple minor differences. We'll cover those. First thing we got to do is remove this door seal, and this is pretty easy. Pull straight up. It's held in there with some metal tabs. Once we get that out of the way, there will be 3 screws here. Ours, they're Phillips, and then down here there's usually one right there. That one's usually Torx, like T27, T30, something around there. So get in there, pull that out, pull these three out. You just lift up on this and kind of work this piece out. All right, so we've got the cover panel off. It is a little bit easier, we find, to go ahead and remove these large connectors here that are the main body connectors. 10mm socket, pull these off, and they should come off pretty easily. And now with those, kind of pull those back and out of the way, because really what we're trying to get to is there's a huge grommet here, and that is actually a part of this boot. So you're gonna have to pull that whole boot, and it's like a 2-piece grommet. And sorry, I guess I should have mentioned, if this is still connected here, it just pulls up and over that white piece. But now we can kind of push that grommet back in here. Put it up on this side, and you can see it's kind of loose. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead, we'll disconnect this connector. It could be hard to do one hand, well, maybe not. This little white piece, there's these tabs on the top and the bottom. Those hold the connector assembly into the door. There we go. So we'll pull that out. And well, this one is, I think, broke. Probably because it's been worked on before. Usually there's one of those red locking pins in here to lock this in place, unless it's on the other side. Nope. Yep, certainly. So normally you'd have to pull that out. And then this here is held on this little white collar that goes around it. Just pull up on that little piece right there, and you should be able to start sliding that off. There we go. Yep. So once that red locking piece is undone, you push on this tab and disconnect this connector, which I can't do with one hand, so I'm gonna have to do here, and we'll be back. Now that connector was really stuck on there, and you can see where others have been working on removing it before, because the back here where you do have a spot back here where you can pry against this a little bit and try to pull that off. They've been prying on it and cracked it, but we did get it off. So now we're going to basically just pull the whole thing back through here. Now we've got the whole thing through here, and we can start working on the wiring. And we'll get to that second. One thing I should have mentioned here at the very beginning, before we even started messing with tearing stuff apart: disconnect or unhook the battery, disconnect the ground. We'll be cutting into some wiring. Of course, we don't want to do that until we disconnect the battery, so make sure you do that. Before we move on to the wiring portion of this, let's really quick look at the driver's side. We'll show you how that connector looked, because it was pretty ugly whenever we got into it. All right, well, you're back. Yeah, that driver's side was pretty ugly. So what we'll do now is we want to keep this boot. Unfortunately, you can't really get this all over this connector. We could cut the connector off, and eventually we will, but it's not that easy, unfortunately. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna slide this white thing back into the boot here real quick. Well, I say real quick, it'll take me a second, of course, because it is a little bit of pain to get up and around there. Come on. All right. Then what we want to do is we actually want to collapse this down as much as we can. So what we've got is we've got some, I don't know, we call them reusable zip ties here, actually. They're not really, but we're just gonna run these through here and try to close this down as much as possible. Give us as much room as we can. Oh, did I shove that down in there? Of course. Okay. Now you could use regular zip ties for this too, obviously. But we have these, so we use these. Oh, come on. Walk in. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to kind of try to push that boot up this wire as much as possible and kind of wedge it up there so we're not dealing with it, because it's down here, it's really kind of a pain and in the way, and you really want to get as much wire showing as possible. And you don't have much to work with, and unfortunately I think we went through some of the wires, which makes it a little bit more difficult, and that could be a problem. Yeah, we pulled that apart. We'll just redo that. We'll be right back. Okay, so we ended up using a zip tie and doing both sides and trying to close it up. One thing you really got to watch, and this caught us up, this wire got caught up above the boot, and we had to make sure to get it fished around there, down there, and it can be a real pain because you don't have much room to work with, but it's why you need to make as much room as you can. We have taken these connectors and pulled the carpet back a little bit, pushed the longer cabled one behind it, trying to get those out of the way, keeping this up out of the way. The reason for that is that since we are using the heat gun and those solder terminals, we need to run a pretty high heat on those, so we don't want to melt anything else in here as well. So anyway, we can now get on to the wiring portion. So this connector that you're going to get, and it depends on what kit you're going to get, so if you get a different kit it might be a little bit different. This one comes and it's fully wired. This Pigtail has all of the wires in it. However, in a lot of these Jeeps, and yours may be different, but on both the driver and the passenger side, on ours there's four spots, and you can check on your other side and make sure 4 spots don't have any wires. So we're going to go ahead and clip those off. Before we do, really make sure you're clipping the right wires. You don't want to clip the wrong ones, and then yeah, that'd be in a world of hurt. You could obviously just leave them if you wanted. We're going to go ahead and clip them because we kind of want them out of the way as we go and do this, because it's a little bit tedious and it'll be a lot easier to have them out of the way. But just make sure you've got this turned the correct way, clipping the right 4 wires off, or whatever wires you don't need. So we're going to go ahead and get those off. Okay, now we will use, and we're using Doyle automatic stripping wire strippers. If I can, I'll try to put a link in the description for those. We like them, work pretty well. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're going to strip all of these first, and we're going to come back and we're going to work through this wiring harness basically one by one. Now, before we get into wiring, if you're using these, a couple of tips on these that you're going to see us do. One, for this project, you're probably going to need at least 2 blues, and the rest can be these red. There are a couple of wires here. There's an orange or red with the white stripe, and the black, they're a little bit larger. Now with these, you're going to have one side that's usually smaller, one side that's bigger. We usually go that route with the wires. A lot of these wires are going to be pretty small, and a lot of these wires here are going to be a little bit bigger until you get to those 2 good sized wires here. Now, whenever we do this, what we'll do is we'll take one of these, we'll actually put it on the wire that's more difficult to get to, and then we will go ahead, get the solder where we want it, shrink this section up here with the gun, because you can do that without really affecting the rest of it. That way it gets it stuck on there, and we're not trying to play with 2 wires trying to get them aligned. And then we'll go in, we'll put this one in, we'll shrink this side, and then we'll go for that solder in the middle. Now with that solder in the middle, sometimes depending on the brand of these you buy, it seems like it can take forever, but we typically always try to wait till we can see the solder flow. That way we know that the solder got melted and, you know, we've got a good connection. So with that, we're going to kind of work through these, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to start with the 3 on the bottom, and we're just going to work one by one. Now you could clip all these at once and, you know, use this to go and check against those, and that wouldn't be bad. But for us, there are a couple wires in here, especially these 2 blue ones that are similar. I think there's a couple orange ones, some pink. We are going to go one by one for what we're doing, but that's really up to you. All right, let's get started. Oh, I should have mentioned, for our gun, we run it on high. It's running about 750 degrees. Well, at least on what it says there. Whether it's really 750 degrees, that's another story. Another big thing is try to make sure you do them all at the same level. If you've got them off, especially at this, it's going to be harder to get all of that taped up. And since we've got one here that's already messed up, we're going to have to either be above this or at that height. So again, let's get started. Oh, yep, see, I already messed it up. I clipped the one in the middle, not the one I intended to. Another quick tip on these: once you get the solder to flow, you need to hold it there for a second. These here, once they're fluid, it's fluid. You know, if you have wires that want to pull apart, they're going to pull apart because it's really soft. So make sure that you get it to the point where it hardens back up before you really manipulate it a whole lot. All right, so that took me about 25 minutes. We'll definitely speed it up in the video. You don't want to watch 25 minutes of that. So what we'll do now, with these type of connectors, I've had people ask me about, and I know some people will tape individually each connector. There's, unless, we really melt through one, it puts a pretty good covering on there, even though you can see it. If we have one where like a wire was really sticking out and like left a big lump, we might tape it up individually. Well, we don't tend to tape those up individually though. So what we will do though is we do want to try to take the stress off of those connections, so we will tape up the whole thing. So let's go ahead and tape this up real nice. Now that we've got that done, we can go ahead and feed this through. What we will do is we'll go ahead and I think you can probably go ahead and lock this in. If you want, out here, there's just a little tab on the back there. Whenever we feed this through, we'll feed this whole outside piece through the side of the body here, and then we'll work on getting the inside grommet seated first, and then we'll get the outside grommet seated. Now for these connectors, we do recommend using dielectric grease in these, and especially in these big connectors back here too. They're prone to get, they can get water on them. Right here is the drain for our sunroof, which we found leaks in this Jeep, so that's the next thing we got to fix. Anyway, go ahead, plug this in, perhaps. Why will it not plug in? Well, what we just found with this kit, and certainly can't say we're going to be able to recommend this kit, is this is not keyed correctly. Keys for this are all the way on the outside, whereas this one is just a little bit on the inside. The connector part here is the same. Yeah, pretty much exactly the same. So it will work, but our problem is we're going to actually have to, so if you do use this kit, you're going to have to take off these keys on here. So we're going to have to grab a little grinder, do a little grinding on an electrical connector, which is never good, but yeah. And there we go. Yeah, just yeah, silly keys. It is wired correctly, so that's a good thing. All right, now we gotta put our boot back on because I pulled off that thing. Yeah, that's fun. Just realized our boot is twisted. Easiest way might be pull off here. Well, there we go. Hopefully now we need to test for our battery drain. Hopefully the driver's side fixed it. We'll just need to now reassemble this. Fairly easy. Put the connectors back in. They'll tighten down with a 10mm socket. You will have some extra wire now. We typically kind of push that up here out of the way above those connectors, and it should go pretty well. There you go, not without its challenges, but we did get it done. We wondered when we opened that kit and saw both were exactly the same. Now, essentially they are the exact same connector, it's just one's keyed a little different, so they do correctly. Everything works correctly and we're not concerned and very happy with how this has gone. This process will probably take you about 2.5 hours if you are planning on doing both sides. So it is a fairly tedious process, and we do recommend having a comfortable stool or something to sit on, because it's a lot of wires there to do, and just make sure you're very cognizant of which wires you're connecting. Now, one other thing I didn't mention, I don't think, in this video is that the wire colors will not match on those connectors. They come pretty well generic. Some of the connectors you can buy maybe all have the same color, because we run into that a lot as well too. So anyway, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on this video, or you can contact us on our website, taboocustoms.com, where we also sell a lot of rust repair kits for Jeeps and trucks and skid plates and different things for off-road use. So thank you for watching. As always, a like or subscribe is greatly appreciated.